Good evening, Melvin, Quant Geekery. Update on the CFA and a new practical test from my previous video series on Dune. I do like coming up with those weird little things to help with thinking. I included in the thumbnail what my progress is on the CFA ecosystem. As I complete it, I'm going to each day put in another update with a little video on where I am. The goal is to help loosen up. Obviously, I'm a little foggy given all the test prep and everything. The practical side is inspired by my niece and my brother. A story my brother told me recently, in part because of a term I gave for my niece. I love her a lot. I will not be able to live with myself if I were the kind of person that wouldn't take one for her, or any of my family. If I wouldn't take a hit from my family, I will not live with myself like that. There's just no living with not being willing to do something like that. So that is the inspiration for my little Voight-Kampf style test, or a thing test, to really get an idea on if someone is in a state of mind to have conversations that involve critical thinking. The reason for that is most of the time when you go to particular rabbit holes of the internet, the people there are not actually there to get critical thinking at all. They don't want to receive it. They don't want to use it. And when they discuss topics with someone who is capable of critical thinking, they understand that critical thinking is a finite resource. If you are under stress, you are less able to think critically. If you are emotionally triggered, you are less able to think critically. If you have already been thinking critically on something else, you are less able to think critically on something unrelated. All of those things mean if you have finite critical reasoning points, critical thinking points, and you engage with someone on an emotional issue and you run out of critical thinking points, they can hit you with critical thinking on an emotional topic and then just shift not just you, but anyone else who happens to be in that conversation. Now, the problem with this obviously is if the person is if the person is doing this at all, this is a verbal abuse tactic. I use abuse in its etymological form, using up. Also, if the person you're talking to is already cognitively spent and they are just on pure emotion and they say they're trying to engage, but they're really in this just overly emotional state, you can't really engage with them on something that requires critical thinking because they're not able to do it. The inspiration for the test is my brother. He's not as aggressive with enforcing time limits on his tablet as my sister is in her house. So when the niece is over at my mom's house, he's much more gracious. He treats a time limit as an entitlement when they are in good standing. If his niece or his nephews are in good standing, they're behaving properly, the time limit is an entitlement. They're entitled to the time that they're on, and afterwards it's a courtesy. So if they stay on the tablet, or they're playing the game, or they're watching the TV after the limit, and they've been doing right, they've been acting right They're in good standing. They're not in trouble with their mom. So they're in good standing. So my niece, my sobrinos, I'm going to use sobrinos from going ahead because they're 2 boys and a girl. So my sobrinos go over. They have a time limit. It's a soft time limit. My brother has the right to enforce that the limit has gone over whenever he chooses. And for the Sabrina, whose name will not be stated, but I have called her a 2-foot tyrant because of some of the things I've heard her doing when I was not physically in the area. I've heard it, but I've never seen her. I've never seen her doing it. She seems to respect me like that, which is odd because since she's never done anything that I was like putting my foot down, I don't know what she expects me to do. Like, I ain't gonna pop her. I've never done that to any of them kids. I don't see the value in it. It didn't work with me. It didn't work with me when my parents put the switch on me. It didn't really change my behavior. It didn't scare me off. It just kept me from getting caught. And I'm pretty bright. They're pretty bright. They're gonna do it when she's not looking. And she knows it. Because the same thing happened. Aside. Back to the semi-main. My brother took a tablet. It's his tablet. She was using it in my mom's house. He pays rent, market rate, for his room. So he's paying market rate for rent. That's his property. She was on there too long and he felt that she was turning into a zombie. She goes ahead, does the thing that little toddlers do when an adult enforces a rule after they had not enforced it. And, she's pouty, she's doing the vase and all that. And he puts some fingers up and asks her to count. And she goes completely ballistic, screaming like a banshee, trying to take it trying to take a 2-foot, little 2-foot tyrant trying to take a grown man's property when he's belatedly enforcing her mother's rule. Think about that. Little Sabrina has a rule set by her mom. She's broken the rule already. And now that the rule is being enforced, instead of begging or trying to emotionally appeal, when she's given a question to count, she flips out, loses her mind. Basically tries to assault a grown man to take back a tablet, which is completely ridiculous because he literally just sat down and held it up. She couldn't climb on him. He wouldn't let her climb on him, and so that was it. Like, she can't jump that high. She's not that tall. Like I said, 2-foot tyrant. Calmer heads prevail. Well, my brother was calm. She was crazy. But she calms down. And I'm all getting this, third hand, because he's telling me this after the fact. When she counts, he gives it back to her. He just wanted to know she wasn't a zombie. Because kids zone out when they're on tablets and stuff these days. And back in the day. And it took her a while to get calm enough and clear enough to count. And when she did, she got the tablet. And before she turned it on, she put the tablet down and hit him, apparently. He said he hit her. He said, not he hit her. She hit him. Like, he didn't lay a hand on the girl. And I know that would be not tolerated, but she hit him. And I said he hit her because I'm not used to a female hitting a male in general. Like, usually you just hear the narrative, it goes the other way. But a little 3-year-old girl hit her uncle because took the tablet away. And that inspired this idea of, if you want to know if someone is engaged in critical thinking, ask a question that requires thinking critically. In this case, if you're talking about politics, ask them, are they anti-capitalist? Are they anti-fascist? Are they anti-racist? Are they anti-essentialist? Are they nihilist or anti-nihilist? Are they, what kind of Christian are they? Pro-Christian, Christian, non-Christian, anti-Christian? Which is it? And depending on what their answers are, you point out that you may have asked those questions might not be of the right categories. So capitalism is an idea, like you're taking the position of capital. So capitalism is the position of capital being essential. So capital essentialism, capitalism. Fascism, the group is essential, by the way. So the fascist is the bundle. So it's group essentialism in a militarized imperial sense. Racism, the race is the essential category from which human structures are built around. From there, essentialism means there is some essence, some highest essence around which human structures, human thought structures, and social structures are built around. It could be you could have multiple essences. So there could multiple essentialism. There could be multiple essences that build structures, but there are essences there are material substantial essences on which human societies and structures are built. And then there's nihilism, which is the position that there is no actual essence around which structures are built. So you have nihilism, where there is no essence, and you also have essentialism, which is there is an essence. And then you have, obviously, within nihilism, there is existentialism, which is the position that it is existence that takes precedence, which is never rationally defined at all. Because it just goes, once you go to nihilism, anything that you build out of nihilism is by default BS. And you know it. What you can't say is, I'm not a nihilist and I'm not an essentialist. Because anti-essentialism is taking the position that there is no essence. That you are taking the position against there being an essence. So essentialism is you're taking the position of there being an essence. Taking the anti-essentialism is nihilism. You're arguing in the negative. Full stop. However, that's not the category error. So if they point out, if they give any contradiction there, you would just note that. And then the last part, obviously, is if you are anti-Christian, you're taking a position against a group. It's like anti-African, anti-American. Any group, anti-Asian, right? So it's a type of collective. Anti-Polynesian, anti-Hawaiian. Taking that anti-position is not at all the same. Because what you have with these positions are structures in an abstract sense, whereas Christianity is a community. Christians are a community, as in you are of the community of Christ. You're in the body of Christ. That's what they would say. You're in this overarching community that's linked with the commonality of being a Christian. Just like if anti-Muslim, right? Muslim literally means someone who surrenders to God. So the community of Islam or the Ummah, that, you can say you're not a member of, you don't ascribe to that. You don't ascribe to their interpretation, right? You can just say, I don't hold to the particular tenets of the faith of Islam. You don't, or you do. And so if you do, then you're a Muslim. If you're a Muslim, you're in the community of those who, hold to those tenets. I think there's obviously more subtlety. And I'm going to say it, they're not the same category. They're not the same things. Whereas you are a member of a group is not the same as you hold a intellectual position on social structures, or at least not necessarily. So you could be a Christian and then not believe in Christian nationalism. You can be a Christian and not vote for Donald Trump. You can be a Christian and feel that you really should vote for Donald Trump. You notice that that political position isn't going to dictate your faith, your belief, that the community that you're in because of your faith. And if somebody gets upset at any stage and they start getting combative or emotional, realize something. Those are just definitions of words. Those are how you actually communicate with other people in a precise, critical way. So if you put all of those things in one in one bucket, or one string of questions like that, you're implying that they're of the same overall. They're somehow of the same overall category. But Christianity is not actually. It's not the same as like an ideology or an idealism. So that it's not an idealism it's not an idealism in that sense, or an ideology in that sense. There is a core difference. People are raised in Christianity in ways that are not necessarily the same as an intellectual tradition. You have to find it and learn, and you have to find the intellectual tradition and be brought into it. And having something like that where it touches on a bunch of things, but is kept in a very critical, clear, delineated way, which enables you to have discerning, rational conversation about anything. Because the real dispute was, by definition, some of these things, you can't be all of these things at once. You can't be all A. You can't be all pro and all anti along that whole line, because there are several embedded issues there. Because you can't you can't agree to all of them, and you also can't be against all of them. But if you get upset about that, then you have your issue is not with ideology. Your issue is with having conversations with precision in the English language. And if that's getting someone upset, if that's getting you upset when you hear that, you're online. Your thinking is too online. That getting on YouTube, getting on any of these social media things removes that critical thinking. And you get to a point where if someone puts up a bunch of fingers, you can't count how many they are. Thanks. Have a blessed one.